Youngest in the Yacht Club. I am Vince Serrano. Man, we got a great guest today. He's a announcer. He's actually a realtor. And he also has kind of like an influencer business. He was on radio. We have Marc Charles today. What's up, bro?
I'm just happy to be here, Vincent. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being on Youngest in the Yacht Club, man.
This is one of the best podcasts I've been watching, going on for, I feel like almost 2 years I've been watching it.
Yep.
It's great. I love the guests. I love the aesthetics, and I like you even more. You become a friend. So this is a great get for me to be able to be on your show.
Bro, thanks for being that too, man. Like, I've gotten to know you over the years, but it's crazy now that we got you on the show, man. We always start off Youngest in the Yacht Club with the one question: who is Marc Charles?
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. You should have told me that earlier. We've been here for an hour. You didn't tell me that. Well, I'll try my best to keep it on the elevator pitch and not more than an elevator ride. So I would say I was born a Canadian, but today I'm a proud American who feels like, while I say I'm a proud American, of course, I do want freedom for everybody in America, if you know what I'm saying. I love the media my whole life since I was a teenager, and I was one of the last of the old school. I was on the real, not the real, but the back in the day, as people would have thought, like broadcasting. So that was like my upcoming and my upbringing. And today I'm happily married and I have a real estate business. So, in between all that, Vince, there's probably like about 100 good little Easter egg stories. So if you dig, we'll try to get into them.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely get into that, man. Youngest in the Yacht Club. This is the wave, we the ship, and we wanna basically coast on all those little things and touch the little, touch the big moments of Marc Charles, bro. You said that you were born a Canadian, and then you came over to the United States. How was that growing up? Like, what was that? What was your background?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was born in northwestern Canada, and then in Edmonton, Alberta, and then I moved down to Detroit, Michigan for most of my life, but Metro Detroit. So, so to be fair, I grew up in the suburbs.
Okay.
But at the same time, to be fair, Detroit never felt dangerous. I love Detroit.
Yeah.
And it always felt like respect got me everywhere because it was just a great place to be at the time.
Right.
Economy got bad, so we got out of there.
Yeah.
But growing up there, I think it kind of made me. It helped me be a little bit more streetwise than maybe if I didn't grow up in a place like that. But other than that, like I liked growing up there. I liked all the people that I grew up with there. For the most part. Were it was a good upbringing. I don't have a lot to complain about. Everybody has their experiences and trials, tribulations, but it wasn't a bad experience. All about 19 years in Metro Detroit.
That's awesome.
And I head back up to Canada in 2008, and then I head down to Tampa, Florida, and right around end of 2012. And I've been here since. I love it. I don't think I'm going anywhere for a while.
Yeah, Tampa is the home, man. A lot of people say that this is the best kept secret, but now it's not a secret anymore. Everybody's coming, right?
No, I know this, man. Just in my business as a realtor, I know. And, there's still room for the most part. I mean, there is still room. We're not closed yet.
For sure.
But it is getting tighter. It's getting more expensive. It's getting a little different than when I first moved here is when it started to kind of go in that direction where the secret was out.
Yeah.
Because I came from Georgia. So I went from Canada
to
Georgia for just a few months and realized the little town we were in was fun to be in at the time, but needed to be in a city with at least 1 million people or more.
Yeah.
And Tampa was a place. I skipped Jacksonville and came down to Tampa, and I love it here.
That's awesome. What's your background? Like, what's the nationality, ethnicity, those kind of things? Like, do you have like cultural?
Yeah. If you asked me that about a year ago, I would have told you I'm 100% Lebanese.
Okay.
But I just ran my DNA,
Ancestry. Yeah.
But I am, about 90% Middle Eastern, Arab, Levant, as someone say, like from the Ottomans. But I am 7.1% Italian, Northern Italian to be specific.
Wow.
So that was an interesting find.
Yeah.
But that's my background. But my whole family that I've always known my whole life, I mean, they're all Lebanese, Arab speaking. I have some, Catholic Italians actually in my family, full-blooded Italians. Go figure, right?
Wow, yeah.
So they were happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So we have some different ethnicities that are married into my family. My wife is Moroccan.
Wow.
Shout out to my love Lala.
Yeah.
And so we have different ethnicities. But as far as like my family and my lineage for up to as far as I know, for like great grandpa. They're Lebanese Americans, and then. But my family was actually here as early as the late 1800s.
Wow.
So I've found like my great aunt's tombstone in Iowa. My grandfather, my dad's father, lived in Iowa in the early 1900s. Found all that stuff in the consensus. So my family was here like kind of as like Lebanese pioneers, some of the first, and then later on. My grandfather moved back to Lebanon.
Wow.
In the I would say late 50s.
Yeah.
Got married to my grandmother, who's still alive.
Wow.
And had 5 kids, and one of them was my father.
Wow.
And my father, since my grandfather and his whole recent lineage, they're all Americans. It was easy. My father was American citizen and stuff. So I was basically born an American citizen in a sense, even though I was an American national, I guess, or I don't know what they call it. I haven't worried about it too much, but maybe I should start worrying about it more.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I'm like, man, just with all the stuff that's going on, man, I hope I'm not getting them in trouble.
Well, I have 2 passports. So hey, which one do you like more?
Yeah, exactly.
Which one do you want to see? Well, but it's interesting because having both Canadian and American backgrounds, living in Canada, being born there, so having a heart there, but also going back as an adult. And then living here most of my life in the States, I have a perspective that I'm not unique, but there's a lot of other people who have a similar perspective. But I have a perspective of lived in both and know how both people really are. And both people are great. They just are different. But I know how great Canada used to be and how messed up it is now.
Yeah.
That's the reason I moved back in 2008. It was a phenomenal place to be.
Wow.
The economy was amazing. The government was still for the people, and I guess as much as you can be. Right. But things have changed. The economy has gone downward, and that's all by design by their current administration. That's So I don't want to get too political, unless that's where you take me.
No.
But that's So I have that perspective of both, and at this point, I'm more proud of sort of being an American and knowing that like I can at least get on a podcast like this and talk about it.
Yeah.
And not worry about possibly getting a knock on my door in the middle of the night by the Canadian government and going to jail.
Yeah, wow.
Because that's what's happened with some people who have spoken out and things like that. It's kind of, I guess you could call it communism. So
yeah, it's crazy.
I love my country, but again, countries can change with new administrations and things can change there. But I guess things need to change here too.
Yeah. Things it's a toss up right now, man.
Yeah.
How did you get into the media?
How did I get into media? I guess, I've always been sort of a I guess you could say a poet and a writer at heart. And then when I was a teenager, like in middle school, I would have the magnets of like the Channel 4 news. Of course, now I've learned better, right? But of those anchors, like the news anchors and the personalities, I'd say, oh, one day I want to be like them. So after 2 years of college, studying psychology and a very diet version of journalism, like I didn't really get into it. I kind of, I guess you could say, dropped out after 2 years of that program of trying to get a psychology degree, and went into, after 4 semesters, went into a different school to go right into learning broadcasting and production and marketing and going in that direction.
Yeah.
And that's because I followed a dream, and it's a story of why it happened. Is I think it might not be an interesting story, but I guess the origin story is important for people to sometimes to not be afraid to follow suit or to see other people as a model. So a friend of mine who was always 2 years ahead of me in school back in Woodhaven, Michigan, he would always, like, he was a senior, I was a sophomore in high school. He would take me to the parties in his car. He'd make sure I have a ride to school. I mean,
cool.
That's
cool dude.
But he was also cool. So he wasn't he wasn't a lame. I was like, all right, he's cool, right? But after college, 2 years of college, like my third semester, I saw that he was working at a radio station. It was top 40 and it was cool. And I was like, man, me and this guy were friends. Like, I asked him, he said, well, listen, if you do A, B, and C, I'll tell you what they are. Basically, call this guy that works at the at the radio station. He gave me his number, and you know, Vince, how valuable something like this
Yeah,
is, right?
for sure.
And then B was go to this school if you want to learn everything, and then C was change your email address, because it was my school and my graduation year. It's like, no, make it a professional email address. So those are his 3 directives. I did all 3 of them, and that's kind of what like got me into it all. I immediately got an internship at that radio station.
Wow.
It was one of the funnest things I did as a under 20. And then I also went to that school he told me to go to. Today, it's still one of the best schools in America for broadcasting. It's called Specs Howard.
Wow.
That's his name, Specs Howard. So he was he started a great broadcasting school decades ago, and it lies at one of the universities there.
That's fire.
So yeah, I mean, that's how I got into media. I will say that when I went to Canada, I stepped aside from like radio, except for very, very part-time, very part-time weekend at a college station. When I went there, I was sort of more music business. But it took me 10 years, is what I was going to say, to get to getting really into being a producer in a studio at a radio station and being an on-air personality, because it's not that easy to get in. To give you some perspective, the class before me in radio production and marketing school and TV school, the class before me, my class, the class after me, no one had jobs in broadcasting.
Wow.
No one. So imagine that everyone does go to school. It's not like university where you go to school for accounting or to get a doctorate or something, and you're going to end up having employment.
Right.
You're going to have employment. Radio is different.
Yeah.
So as talented as I might have thought I was, I still sent hundreds of resumes out after school and didn't get anywhere. The job that I had, it was an internship. It lasted for like nearly 2 years. I had a great time. The latter half of it was paid, but it wasn't fulfilling. So I kind of needed to leave and do something different.
That's cool. What did you do after that?
I went back to Canada. I was 22 years old.
Okay.
I moved back by myself with $300 in my pocket.
Wow.
It was in August of 2008. October of 2008 was when the entire economic crash happened.
Yeah, that's
so
crazy.
I worked for my dad, and so I saw the businesses going down, so that's why I left. So business was bad, I left. But I went to Canada, took a chance on just going back there, taking advantage of, they had an amazing economy. I had a Canadian passport. So I went up there. Within just half a year, I was producing as an executive producer a music production and artist development show called Edmonton Undiscovered. It was a little bit before video and YouTube and clips, but if you Google it, it's going to be there. There's a bunch of stuff, but it's going to be like, you know, people's old iPhones, people's old phones, like old camcorders. It wasn't like today because it was between
2008,
2008 and 2011 or 12. It was 4 seasons each year, and each year we worked with 60 different artists, 30 adults, 30 under 18 artists. And what we did is we had about 2 or 3 days a week. We'd have their rehearsals, and I kind of, this was my baby, and I put it all together. I got all the coaches on board with the lint in my pocket.
Wow.
It was a dream that I kind of followed and made it work. I would get sponsors to provide everything I needed. The only things I really paid for was a sound engineer, because I knew how good it needed to be.
For sure.
And a few other things, the venue and a few, but it wasn't that I was taking advantage of people, because when they got there, I was handing out envelopes to everybody, even kids who were 13 and 14 and 15 who were working as on the show. And so I took care of everyone, but I got everyone together as this sort of a co-op, like, hey, this is what we're going to do if you want to be a part of it. Here's what here's what you can do to contribute. And everyone was happy to, because they got to work with all these amazing artists, just as I was. So that's what I did for those 5 years. It took me about a half a year to get it started, and another half a year after the last season. So it was about 5 years of working on it, booking musicians there, doing just an array of things that surrounded music mostly, not as much broadcasting. And then I guess to get a little bit more like sort of personal and how I would, my thought process.
Yeah.
I sort of looked at how great the talent I was working with were doing. Certainly not every single one of them became successful, obviously. That's not how music works. But just the fact that I felt like I was able to handle that much talent and work with them and have this very, selfless. I feel I'm not trying to, feel myself here, but I was very selfless at the time. I was just doing it for, let's make this thing as great as possible. So I figured if I could do that for 60 others a year, if you do the math, it's 240 artists. I'm sure I worked with many more than that. I knew that if I could do that for them, for that many people, I could come back to the States and focus on myself and become a talent. And that's how I got back into broadcasting.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Bro, I mean, just listening to kind of like the journey and where it was headed and how you ended up coming back it's inspiring, man, because, you're like helping others and achieve their dreams, and then you realizing, well, let me do mine,
That's another way to put it, and it's accurate.
Okay.
There's no but. It's an accurate way to say it. And, I try not to, when I speak about these stories, because I speak about them very, very rarely, not even with my wife. It's not something that I like to, it's not my badge. I don't show it off. I feel like I always look forward to the future, today, the future, yesterday, just to make today better. But I try not to look back. I'm not Uncle Rico, but I can throw the ball over that mountain. I promise you.
That's cool. Yo, so you said you got married. You said you have a wife.
Yeah, well, that's been over 4 years now. We're going on our 5th anniversary, and
Congrats.
I love her so much.
Congrats. How did you meet her?
It was just more of a decision I sort of was making for myself, that I want to find like someone to get married to, and that was at 35.
Okay.
So it was something I never did before, and I was like, so I did that, and I was just lucky enough to find somebody close enough. She lived in Orlando, that we were able to meet, and I mean, perfect is a strong word, but it was, at the time, that's how it felt, and I was so happy to meet her.
You met her when you came back down?
I was here for years before I met her. I was here not for 10 years, but maybe like whatever. I came here in 2012, late 12.
Awesome.
Met her like during COVID, the beginning of
2020,
like December 2020. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. So you in the meantime, when the time you're kind of like finding your dream, what was and before meeting your wife, what was kind of the mission while you were down here? Like what were you doing?
Okay, so I'll tell you the story how I ended up getting hired by CBS, which to me was a big deal, because I came down here to try to get back into something. I'm telling you, getting hired in broadcasting is not easy, right?
Right.
Maybe nowadays it's getting easier. Like, you could probably go get hired.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I appreciate that.
No, and it's reality, right? And I'm spitting. I feel like I'm trying to spit real game here. And what I mean is, you can go to them and be like, "Hey, look, this is what I do. This is my following. I can just bring them to you." They may hire you. They may put you somewhere like on the weekend or somewhere to get you going. But it's not like when I got into it. Like, I went to school in 2005, and at the time I was already working. I already had a job in radio, like 3 or 4 days a week. I was at a radio station working, like doing everything I could. So that was a different era. It was before podcasting and YouTube, well before Joe Rogan had his first podcast.
Yeah,
way before it, right? In fact, when we heard podcasts, we'd raise our eyebrows. I regretted that later, but I was also ahead of the other like radio people, because I got into it like way ahead of them. So to get back, get me back on track.
Yeah. So you how did you, like, what were you doing in between?
How did I get here? So I want to tell you the story how I actually got into radio. So I need to actually digress. So when I get to Tampa, I almost immediately get a job in event planning. Became a manager of an event planning company. It was actually pretty cool for Florida. Like, just got here. It was getting, like, me and my parents and we were here, and I was already like doing my thing, and it was cool.
Right.
Getting paid, working in something that I knew how to do, that I was cool with because I'd done it in the past. So, which was my first job going to Canada in 2008, before I started my music production, was event planning. They hired me, and in December I told them I needed to quit because I needed to follow my music stuff. And that next summer is when I had it popping. So when I get to Florida, I guess it's just in my DNA at that point, to do that, I guess. So one day I'm interviewing this guy. His name's Lumberjack. If you look him up, you may or may not find him somewhere on social media. But he's a big old guy. His name's Lumberjack. He comes in. He wants to work for us as one of the like field event guys, right? And he comes in. He starts telling me that he works at 102.5 The Bone, and within seconds, I'm dazing off, and he's talking about his job at The Bone, that he's an intern, right? But he's there, and I start thinking in my head, like I'm listening to him, but also thinking, why am I interviewing this guy when I should be working in radio? So I quit immediately because I was living with my parents. I didn't have a mortgage at the time. I was able to force myself to, I'm going to get a job in this game. That was around like September, and December I got hired by CBS Radio. January like 2nd or 4th, I was my first day there.
Wow.
So I kind of had this epiphany, come to Jesus moment with a guy who I was interviewing. I hired him immediately.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, you're definitely hired.
Yeah.
You know, we actually became friends. He'd come out on the boat with me and my dad, and he was, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Broke the boat once. That was a funny story.
Damn.
Yeah, he's too big. But he sort of indirectly inspired me, so we moved here in like June that year, and that happened in September. So it was just those few months that I had to have an epiphany of like, wait a minute, don't get too comfortable here. And I think I lied to them and told them my back hurt and I need to stay home, so they deliver my check, and then I quit. Yeah. I'm not shysty, but they were shysty, and I needed to deal with them a certain way. And I was done with them, and I just started applying to this. There at the time, and still probably till this day, there's only really 3 big companies here in Tampa. You've got iHeartRadio, Cox Media, and the Beasley Media Group, who used to be CBS Radio. So when I worked there, we got bought out by Beasley and became a Beasley employee. So at the time, there's only 3 employers that can hire you.
Wow.
And so it's a bit of luck.
Yeah.
The fact that I had worked in pro wrestling in the past made the hiring manager want to hire me because he was a total wrestling mark.
Wow.
A total geek about it. I remember there was in a group interview to get the job because it was first in the marketing department. And there was 30 people there. And in front of all of them, this is how kind of weird he was. He was like, he looked at me, he's like, you're the kind of guy we want to hire around here. I'm like, why would you say that in front of all of these people? But at the same time, I kind of was like, this is why you're here. Yeah. Right. So I did. I ate up the moment and I made it happen. Right. The next day there was 30 other people that were going to come out. I was like, well, what about them? He was like, hey, don't worry about them. Because there was 60 applicants and they hired 2. So it was a really lucky hire at the time. Nowadays it's a bit easier. Just a little game for anyone out there who actually wants to get into the industry of radio. If you really want to get in radio or TV, you can go to the local radio or TV stations online and look for their promotion jobs. That'll get you in the door. You impress the right people, get to the right place. And just like I did, because I believed in myself, I stuck to it. Because I felt like I was taking a step back. It was all college kids that worked in promotions and marketing. It was all young kids who didn't care about that job. They had no dream of being in. But I outperformed them naturally because that's where I wanted to be. And within just a few months, like, the way I got hired to go to the studio and start training was funny.
We're gonna get into that once we get it. Yeah, we're gonna segue into that right now. When we come back, I'm gonna ask you how you got into combat sports, how you kind of like made your name in the radio group, and then a little bit more about Marc Charles and what's next.
I love it.
Cool.
All right.
Youngest in the Yacht Club. We're back with Marc Charles. Marc, man, like you gave a lot of game about kind of like how to get into broadcasting. And, one of the biggest things that I met you on was actually at a fight of mine. You were the commentator. I didn't even know you did commentating. Like, I knew you did, but I didn't know, like, to what extent. What made you get into commentating combat sports? Like
combat sports.
Yeah. You said you worked for WWE. Like, it was
I just love violence. No, I can't. No, I'm playing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what got me into combat sports would be just the fact that I've always loved it since I was a baby. So my 7th birthday gift, my 7th birthday was my mom driving me around and finding a karate studio that would, because they all wouldn't let you in until you were 7 for some reason at the time. Like, you're talking like 91, 92.
Okay.
And that was that was my birthday gift. That was because that was a request.
Right.
So I always loved it. I stuck to that for I wasn't a black belt in karate. I became a red belt, which in Tang Soo Do is about 2 years out from testing if you could become a black belt, which is not a black belt in Tang Soo Do. It's a midnight blue belt.
Oh wow.
Trying to pay some homage to my old people. But
Awesome.
I do love that sport, even though it's not as street savvy as some other things might be, like being able to grapple and kickbox.
Yeah.
But I did love it. It taught me some cool stuff. It's a South Korean martial art. So I was in that for about 7 or 8 years, 5 days a week.
Yeah. It's a discipline, man. It's awesome. A martial art and a discipline. Yeah.
My parents made me go 5 days a week because if you paid the yearly, you were allowed to.
Oh wow.
And they were not letting me miss a day.
That's awesome. That's awesome
like,
too.
We're paying for it, so you're going.
Yeah.
So I love that. When I was 16, I got my driver's license. I picked up my cousin Adam. We went to a boxing gym. There was a pro boxer back then named Khalid Macled, and he was Detroit based. We would go. So his brother worked for my dad. They were both. His brother was an older guy, but they worked for my dad, and so I had this plug to go to a boxing gym. The first day I went to the gym, I was almost immediately mad at karate because I was like, wait a minute, why were you standing so flat footed in karate? This is how you should be moving. So I loved boxing. I didn't box or compete outside of sparring in the gym with just like the other like teenagers or like young adults. So I was never a boxer, but I was there for a couple of years. I kind of forgot the name of the boxing gym. It wasn't Crunk, but it was on Wyoming Avenue, somewhere just a little bit west of Livonia and Michigan Avenue somewhere. So if you want to look it up, it's somewhere right around there on Wyoming Avenue in Detroit, just close to Dearborn. So so that was that. And then I was a wrestler for 9 years from the 3rd grade until senior year. So I wrestled at between Gibraltar School District and the Woodhaven School District. Between those two, I just wrestled my whole like school life.
Wow.
So between all those things, it just built this love in all of that for me. And then like I was a huge WWE fan through all of it too, so that just blended right.
Combat just made it.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, I was the oldest cousin too, so you
was dropping them elbows.
It was. You already know.
The Rock.
Hey. So actually, when I went back to Canada in 2008, I actually worked for doing all that music. I also worked in pro wrestling, and one of the funny kind of highlights, in a sense, was super funny was. Working for Bret Hart's nephew, he's insane, and he's in Florida now. Please don't kill me. He's probably in prison, actually. I'm not sure, but Teddy Hart. Look him up.
Wow,
crazy.
Hopefully he's not in prison.
No, I think one of the streaming companies, like a Netflix or one of the, I don't know if it's Netflix, but one of them did something called, God,
To Catch a Predator.
No, God, no, but not too far off.
Oh shit.
Look them up. All I can say is they missed me on the interview. They should have brought me in.
Wow.
But point is, I was a wrestling announcer for years there and a producer for a few different companies. So I love pro wrestling. But when I come to Florida, I get hired by CBS Radio. I start a wrestling podcast, right?
Wow.
Just because it's easy. No, not a lot of people were doing it. I had a couple of ins. I was in a radio station. I was like, I could like day one.
You can make this pop.
Day one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was back then. It was day one. Like not like now. You gotta kind of
really work.
Yeah, it was a little easier then. That was in, I think 2015. So it was right around 10 years ago. So I do the wrestling podcast. I'm a producer and a weather and news guy on the talk station there in the building. And one day my phone rings in the radio station. It's like the sort of the red phone where it's your program director. You have to answer it. As we call it, the warm line. Excuse me. So I answer the warm line. I'm like, hey, it's Mark. It's my old program director, the Sarge, Charlie Oakes. And honestly, I absolutely love that guy because he gave me all the opportunities that not many other people would, which also opened other opportunities and gave other people confidence to give me opportunities. So he was a white rabbit, as some people might call it. He calls me and I say, hey, Charlie, what's going on, Sarge? What can I do for you? He's like, oh, Mark, we got this people on the phone. No one wants to interview him. And mind you, we have Wild 94.1, Country QIK, Maxima.
Yeah, you
we've
have
got all these
everybody.
big stations.
Beasley, yeah.
And he's like, nobody wanted to do the interview of whoever this was. He's like, no one wants to do anything with this. He's like, I thought you might like it. And I was like, okay, what is it? He's like, well, they want, he's like, I'm not sure where it's from, but there's 3 names I have here. Maybe you know who they are. He said somebody told him that I might know who they are and I might want to do something with them. He starts reading them. He goes, Rashid Evans.
Rashad Evans.
Glover Texiera.
Glover Teixeira.
And Dana White.
Dana. The whole UFC. The hot UFC. That's crazy.
UFC Tampa 2016-ish. You could look it up. That was the main event. No, that was the main event.
Yeah.
So I paused for a few seconds. I'm like, Charlie, because I'm stunned.
Yeah. He's not even.
I watched UFC in 1993, UFC 1, stealing it on the black box by choice, driving to my aunt's house 30 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to go see this.
Yeah.
I say, Charlie, I think I'm going to need another hour of airtime once a week, Thursday nights at 11 p.m. He goes, okay, done. I'm like, all right. Tell them I'll interview them then. He was like, all right. That was that. And that's how the MMA talk show with Marc Charles started here in Tampa on 3 different FM and AM stations that ended up getting syndicated on ESPN radio, on like a few of their ESPN radios in different markets.
Wow.
So, luck.
Yeah.
I can't say Dana White said, hey, I need Marc Charles. I can just tell you that there was some luck there. And that's kind of how that happened. I started making my way around all the promotions here, the gyms, making as many relationships as I can. It kind of went from "Who are you? Get away from the cage," and I'm like, well, I gotta, I'm on the radio. They're like, who listens to the radio anymore? Get out of here. To being the lead play-by-play commentator on dozens of different pay-per-views and being able to travel to LA and work for the great Sean Merriman, who has Lights Out MMA there in LA. Getting hired now by where I'm going to New York here in a couple of weeks. I'll be going to New York for my first time doing any kind of MMA media up there with Flex Fights.
Wow.
So that's so I've had some really nice opportunities that not everyone who has a dream gets. So I'm completely grateful.
That's cool.
I don't take anything for granted. I don't take any advantage of any situations. I'm just very grateful that I've been able to figure out how to navigate getting there. And that's the short story of how I got in. There's many trials and tribulations.
For sure.
Get away from the cage is the
the good way of saying
sugar-coated
it.
way of saying it. But of course, I appreciate the experience.
For sure.
If you get it on day 1, it's not as sweet if you get it on day 100.
Yeah, you had to work for it, man. You had to put in the work. You had to put in the sweat and the sweat equity.
Thank you to Glover Texiera.
Yeah, that's crazy. How was that first interview?
So Rashad and Glover were like the most generous, amazing guys ever at the time, and still are.
Wow.
So they were cool as you can be. They were nice. They gave me anything I wanted as far as when I was doing the show with them. Dana, interesting interview. Interesting. So what I did was I called UFC, and I said to the PR person there that set this up, because once I get in touch with them, I say, hey, listen, I know they said no to you, but I'm going to get you on some stations here. Tell me who there is. I'm going to get him on. So I think I ended up getting and I did this for years after that, or I'd get him on Maxima if they had Spanish people.
Wow.
Jorge Masvidal hung up on one of the sweetest people in the world at Maxima because he was, before he got a little more popular, a little bit bitter at the time, but he hung up on her because she asked him if he was ever a champion before. He didn't like that question.
Damn.
So I'd always get people on different stations there, but the Dana White thing, when I was supposed to have him, I had him on Wild 94.1 with my boy Richie, Puerto Rican. He's the morning guy now.
Yeah.
So I had him with Richie, but Richie knew nothing about what was going on, but he loved that stuff. He was also a wrestler, loves UFC.
Yeah.
But he didn't know how to interview a guy like that.
Right.
But he wanted to make it great. And the reason Richie's a morning guy now, because he was smart enough to let me stand behind the camera and coach him through every question. Great. So while I'm coaching him on the last question, he's got himself on mute, and I'm like, okay, now ask him this. The last question, my phone rings. It's the UFC PR. They're like, hey, Mark, we got some bad news. And it's Dana White's on the phone with Richie at the time.
Wow.
Dana can't do an interview with you, because I was 10 minutes later. I was like, why? It was when Lyoto Machida popped dirty for steroids.
Oh my god!
And Dana just found out in that moment.
Wow.
So they're like, yeah, Dana's not going to be available. So I didn't get the Dana White interview.
Wow.
Dana, please, if I get another podcast going, brother, you got to...
Yeah, bring him on Youngest in the Yacht Club.
Brother.
Yeah.
This moment, number one, bullshit.
Yeah. we'll have him on Youngest in the Yacht Club. You can interview him.
I would be honored.
Yeah, that'd be dope, man.
Yeah, so that's kind of my entry into it. And I did work for the play-by-play stuff. I started working for almost nothing to getting my value up. And these days, I'm sort of selective. I'm not going to work for 10 different companies. Like I used to try to work for everyone.
Right.
Now I'll work for, one MMA company, one boxing company, sort of try to keep it at that.
Yeah.
Free agent with boxing, but with MMA, I am signed with Flex Fights. That's where I am today. And honestly, I couldn't be happier with it. They're great. They put on an amazing show.
They do. They put on a good production. They just had one here in Tampa recently.
Yeah, shout out to Chris and the crew, TJ. Yeah, they all do a great job. Yeah.
That's awesome. If you could give some advice to someone who wanted to get into broadcasting or communication or journalism, what's a piece of advice that you would give them?
Who's the person? It kind of depends. Are they already popping? Do they have Youngest in the Yacht Club going? Where they can come to Wild and be like, hey, look, if you're looking for someone, and you can come to them for a year, and eventually maybe they'll be like, all right, come do Sundays at from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. We'll give you a spot. So there is that, because you already have something. But if you don't have anything going yet and you have a dream, I said it earlier, you sign up, you kind of, the entry level job, which I don't think everyone understands in broadcasting. The entry level job is promotions. So anyone from a unemployed adult from 18 and up to a college student to anyone who's still trying to follow a dream at any age can get a job in promotions just by applying and being impressionable enough to get hired. Okay, that's on you.
Yep.
And once this is like a very short way to put it. Once you've got the key to the building, it's up to you what you do with it. For instance, when I got the key to the building to CBS, sure, I was hanging posters and giving out flyers, giving out free gifts and doing games and stuff at the stuff. But hey, I was also going to everything for free. I was on stage with the rappers. I was going to the NHL. All the stuff. I was getting the perks. But eventually, I was like, oh, okay, so if I'm quiet enough about it and I don't ruffle any feathers, I can go into the studio off hours and I'm allowed to do a podcast. So, in the next thing you know, you might make waves. So there's just a lot of ways to do it.
Get your foot in the door.
Without nepotism, you're gonna get your foot in the door, and you don't necessarily need to get hired for a big job there. You just in the building, and you kind of build relationships, make people like you. You might make the whole operations manager love you. The next thing you know, you're getting trained to be a producer when just like a month ago you were doing a job that you didn't really want to do. Wow. So that's the thing. It's just getting your foot in the door. But if you don't have some experience and I don't mean a studio like this, but I mean in a broadcasting studio, don't just apply for those studio like on-air jobs and stuff, because they're hiring people who are driving ratings. So if you're not like proven already that you can drive ratings, you're going to have to sort of prove yourself that you can even be in that position. Wow. So there is like a way to get there, but if you're already popping and you've got a following or something and you want to like leverage that, you can do that too. There's a few different ways to skin the cat. So when I got out of broadcasting school, I got my, my degree and my certifications and all that. I basically was stuck with this like idea that I was going to get a job, but it wasn't like that, because I didn't have every job description had a qualification requirement of 4 years of
experience.
How do you have 4 years experience if you can't get experience? And every single employer says the same thing. So it took my friend, like a guy like that, back when I was just a sophomore in college, to tell me, hey, and he hooked me up. He told the guy, hey, this is my friend, hire him. Right. It wasn't that they hired me because they liked me. Sure, they might have liked me. That's also it might have helped, but it was a small form of nepotism that helped me get in there. But once I went out in the wild on my own, it's a different story.
For sure.
So there's different ways to get in, but nowadays if you can just get the key to the building, be in promotions, and those are fun jobs too. I mean, especially if you're still a little bit young, whatever that might mean. If you're the youngest in the yacht club. Yeah. But there's a few different paths. But I would say getting hired in the entry level jobs is one of the best because you can actually get paid to do a job there while making relationships, finding out what you might want to do there, seeing what things are like. When you get in there, one of the first things you should do if you're really trying to get into like the studios, because getting into the studio wing is it's not just everybody's allowed to go up in the studios, right? It's a different spot. So, but to get in there, you just need to get someone to like you that can walk you into that might not even work there. They may be a sales agent or a program director, or assistant program director, or somebody that works in an office. They might like you, and you tell them, "Hey, this is what I really want to do," and they're gonna be like, "Oh, you want to be a producer or a host or something? Okay, you need to learn how to work the board." Then, if they like you enough, they might walk you in to someone's studio and say, "Hey, this is Vince. Show Vince how to do the board."
Wow.
A little piece of advice: please take note quickly if you think they're trying to help you or not, because it's a very tight, cutthroat business. So some people will be like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll help them." So just take note of if someone's being genuine when they're helping you, and you can tell usually, like
for sure.
if you're learning, because you'll leave that day being like, "Oh wow, I know how to run a board now," or you'll leave that day confused.
Yeah,
those are two different things.
Like, damn, I didn't even know nothing, or the guy helped me out, man. I learned so much. So
Yeah.
Mark, what's next for Marc Charles? Like, what's the I know we're living life, but what's the main mission right now?
God, that's a hard question. It's
Yeah.
loaded. The main mission. The main mission is for everyone that I love to live as long as God will give them, because that's what's important to me, is to have the people I love around. After that is for me to live as long as possible. And then after that is just to have a happy, peaceful life. And
awesome.
that's a general way to put a lot of things.
One of the best answers I've heard.
That can be to do with your marriage. It can be to do with my only sibling, Marcel. It could be my brother. It could be to do with family, friends, work, relationships like you and I have. Just peace, tranquility. It's really all I want, and I'm not being vague. It's really how I've been thinking for just many years of my life. I just stay out of it as much as possible. But as far as like being prosperous and trying to grow in the world, I do want to be a part of the combat sports world where I can flourish, even if it's not monetarily, it's spiritually, because it's where I love to be. And then I want to be able to grow businesses with my family.
That's awesome.
Big goal is to build businesses abroad, outside of the U.S. And it's not anything against the U.S. because I build businesses here. This is where I live and love to live, and where my main bread and my resources are. But I also want to have businesses abroad. My wife is a doctor, and I want to make sure that she takes full advantage of that and being able to build businesses around that and stuff. And so if I can work to make that happen, it'll make me happy.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to be more selfless because I've already been, I got married at 35, so I already kind of sort of did everything for myself. Yeah. So it's easier to, not just worry about myself these days. It seems like. So my goals are less about myself and more about the people around me, because the people around me are happy, then it's just easier for me to really flourish in the things that I love. Because there's things, of course, I love and I want to be part of and do, and they're just me, and I'm the only one who wants to be there and that I love. But for me to enjoy those things, everything around me, of course, nothing's perfect in this world today. Everything is hard, but that's why I try to keep my circle, who my circle is. That's what's important first.
That's awesome.
And that way, that's where the peace comes. And there's other layers, of course, as you go outside of those layers, to where you try to make peace as you go out more and more, and that can be tough.
That's awesome, bro. I appreciate you being on the show. Can you tell the viewers where to find you, where they can look you up?
Yes, definitely. Marc Charles Tampa on Instagram, or most social media. So Marc is with a C, and then you are looking for a house in Tampa, Florida, in the area. Of course, me and my wife are happy to help. So me and my wife run a real estate business. It's called Tampa Homes with Lala. My wife is Lala.
Wow.
And we're partners together. We partnered with Keller Williams about 4 years ago and some change. And We absolutely love our business, and that's my that's the way that I'm able to support my family and able to grow the other things that I love to do. So rather than relying on my passion of combat sports and media and talking, chopping it up and all these things, instead of relying on those things for money, I can rely on those things for spirituality and feeling good and getting it, getting it in because I love it.
Right.
And then the real estate business is where I'm able to, have a life, pay for a life. And because that's a real business. I feel that when you're extremely passionate about something, do your best to not rely on it for money.
Yeah.
Because the higher ups will always leverage that.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
The moment that you're able to sort of balance that or find a way around it or maybe put another business first, like I've learned to do about 4 or 5 years ago, I decided, okay, I need to put another business first because my passion is here and I want to get to a point where, I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to have FU money or anything, but where I don't need your money.
Right.
I might not have FU money, but I don't need your money.
Right.
So I'm doing this because I like it. So no, I won't be here Sunday at 4 a.m.
That
kind of, I mean, it's simple stuff. Very simple. But again, if you have a dream to get into something like that and you want to do it for a very long time and you're going to be working for business, like companies and corporations, broadcasting companies, or even independent companies, try to set up yourself first so that you're not going in it for money because it's going to be tough to make ends meet and it's going to be tough to get a lot of money in the beginning. So it's just better to go into it if you're a little more comfortable. But again, I also don't want to take anything away from people who are willing to be those starving artists like I did. That's the mistake I feel I made, and I don't want others to make.
Right.
I was willing to go years and years of not doing much and thinking about other people because I didn't believe in myself as much.
Right.
So thinking about other people's talent and producing them at a mass scale and not thinking that I had the talent to do what I wanted to do, and eventually circling back and realizing I do have the talent. So if you feel you have the talent or just the potential to get to that potential of talent, at least try to make sure that you're able to make ends meet so that in the very minimum you're not relying on your passion to eat.
That's awesome.
But thank you,
Mark. I appreciate you being on the show. This has been Youngest in the Yacht Club. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and share. And you guys already know, man, Youngest in the Yacht Club. Follow us on Youngest in the Yacht Club on all channels. Peace.